world that's filled with a lot of confusing discussion points around data and how we actually make data work inside of a dashboard or an LLM, or literally use it to do predictive modeling, things of that nature. What are the steps? And I know we throw around a lot of terms in the data industry. So let's go ahead and walk through this together, and hopefully it'll help you kind of raise your awareness of what actually occurs within a data environment. So stay tuned. So let's go ahead and start there on the left side of the screen. You know, the first and probably one of the more important steps that you need to take is you need to understand what your data is that you want to look at. So what does that data source look like? Now, for some, this is going to be a manual process. You're going to have to look through a data set, for example, a database, and say, hey, I want these tables, or I want these rows, or a bunch of spreadsheets maybe. Whatever the data asset is, the source of the data, maybe a corporate database, maybe it's a health database, you're trying to find health information, or it's an operational or supply database. Whatever it is, number one there, you have to collect the data. You got to create what we call is a data catalog or a data library. So that's kind of first step, but let's dig a little bit deeper inside of there. How could you do this? Well, you can build a data catalog pretty easily. It's not an overly challenging thing to program, and there are plenty of them for sale as well, so you can buy one and add your data assets. Now remember, inside of a data catalog, we're collecting the asset name, the attributes of the asset, where the data asset is, right? So ultimately, you would search for information, and let's say that you were working at an airport and you're trying to land a plane, and you need the AI to help you with that. Well, the example may be that you need to know what the weather is, you need to know what the runway status is, and maybe you need to know what the availability of fuel and a maintenance crew. So all of those factors could be data points inside of that data catalog. You'll select those points, and then number one represented, you'll get those data assets, and maybe it'll be instructions on, all right, this is the information you need to download from this data source, and they'll define it there for you, because your data catalog will have all of that information within it. Or maybe you've built an API, so as you go through, or you've purchased a catalog that's capable of doing this, you go through the catalog, you select the weather, the runway status, the fuel, the mechanics, all of those data assets that you'd like. And then number two there, you just literally pull all that data from the catalog. So usually a data catalog is filled with metadata, data about your data, but you could wire it up to have APIs that actually reach out to those data sources and pull down, those YAML files or whatever the files are that you need. Now, you could take this as two routes at this point. You could go the first route, which is to take that information and curate that information inside of a machine learning environment. So some of the things that the machine learning environment does for you are listed right there on the screen. Model performance, versioning, reproduction of models, governance and auditing, all of that type of activity. It'll manage the pipelines, the machine learning pipelines, where the data sources are, how we get that. It'll make those models scalable and dynamic so that the models can be curated and adjusted based on the data that's coming in, and it enhances collaboration. And so that's kind of what the tasks are that the machine learning environment does for you, and what it produces, why the machine learning, right? It's going to be faster, increase accuracy, reduce cost. You can read everything on it. Better governance, risk management, all of those things are really critical, and we can use machine learning to do that. So potentially you identify what your data assets are, and then you move that into the machine learning environment that builds the models for you and gets all of the data curated in a way, maybe builds the model for that LLM, number 4 there, as it pushes on into the visualization section where you're asking a chatbot or something like that. And if you look down at the bottom right side of the screen, you'll see some of the reasons why we use AI, right? Ask the data, chat, predictive modeling, right? Find inefficiencies in certain things, asset tracking, predictive assets, and supply chain and optimize operations. All of those are built on data points that we've curated within the MLOps environment. Now, for some environments, you may say, hey, I don't have an MLOps environment running, and I'm not going to buy one anytime soon, so what do I do at that point? Well, once the data, again, back to the left side of the screen, we collect the data using the catalog. We know what data elements are that we need. Instead of going route number 1, we go route number 2, which is to go directly into the visualization section, right? So to feed the AI the information that we've collected. Now remember, we're going to need to model that information. Perhaps you're using a different software package that you can maybe drop those data components or right into a landing zone, and then that other product just comes in, consumes, curates the data, and adds it to data that exists in its own ecosystem. Whatever it is that you're using, at the end of the day, it's going to produce the same result as number 4. It's going to produce some sort of curated data set that you can actually use. But the key message here is between 2 and 3 there, we don't have to go through machine learning ops if we don't want to. First, we can visualize that data, and then notice at the top of the screen, number 5 there, we actually have those models feeding back into the MLOps environment. So you might ask, well, why do I build the models with number 2, collect the data, through number 3, I go directly into visualization, hoping that there's an MLOps environment in there, or I'm manually building my data models, or my data is so simple, like it's just a spreadsheet, for example, with not a lot of data. I'm going maybe into a Power BI or something like that, some sort of visualization software. So I may not need a model to keep the data up to date or things of that nature. But here is something that will happen in your environment. So let's say you have a group of data scientists. They're all doing great jobs. They get a set of data. There's multiple data feeds, and they're building a product, some sort of data product to be visualized over on the far right of your screen. And they're doing that through data models. They're keeping that data updated because, of course, data is usually not stagnant. It's somewhat fluid. So, that whoever it is, data scientist, data analyst, data worker, they're keeping those things up and running. Well, it will not be a short time before they can really only handle 1 or 2 of those jobs because it's a lot of work. Once you define what that is and you discover, golly, this is a lot of work, you're going to lean towards number 5. You're going to say, okay, I already now have fine-tuned what I want to see, and to prepare it and keep this up to date is painful. So I need to now push that data into an MLOps environment that can sustain that data. It's going to do the modeling for you. It will, manage those data feeds, the source feeds coming in. It'll kind of do it'll kind of do all of those tasks for you as you bring in and sustain that data. So that's it. That's all we have today for you. This is your basic data model. Collect the data, curate and sustain the data, visualize the data. And as you can see, paths 1 and 2, there's 2 different approaches to this. We talked about those. And good luck with your project.